Good morning, dear listener and fellow travelers. This is Lions, and you have found Raven Insight, a place where we come to talk about the journey to higher consciousness. Perhaps you've recently experienced trauma in your life, job burnout, breakup with a partner, or you just have a weird hollowness that all of a sudden cropped up with inside you one day, and you're wondering what that's all about. Well, I've been on a similar journey myself, and I'm here to help provide some feedback and understanding from my perspective, and let you know that you're not alone, that this is not the kind of thing, weird as it may be, that is unique in this universe. And it's truly a blessing for those of us who have started to encounter this journey, to really embrace the ride. And that's kind of where I am right now. Truth be told, I had a real hard time putting out this video today. As I explained before, I do these extemporaneously. When I'm inspired and I have thoughts in my head percolating, I turn on the camera and I start to talk, and things fall into place. I call that speaking from a place of divinity, or it's a flow state, really. It's just the ideas are in there, they're synthesized. I've done the research, I've done the understanding. Now just calm down and come to a place of quiet within yourself. Use that higher level of intellect and put the words together. Still, I felt a conflict inside, and so I again thought I had to step back. Because my last video, at the end of it, I was really fired up and blissful, and a lot of you probably thought I was manic, but I'm not. Trust me, I've been manic before, and I can tell the difference in my life. I'm just a very animated individual, if you know me. But the difference between really mania and just being excited like that is your messaging coherent, or is your mind all over the place? And it's just something I'm very passionate about, because once you get a taste of what's on the other side, you get those blissful moments. And so I thought for this video, really where I need to do, I've been throwing a lot of stuff out there since the beginning. You know, I introduced myself, I said, what's in it for you? And then I started pounding you over the head with the big questions. Who are you? Who are you? What's your value, right? And you're like, what's all this? I never even thought about it. But if you haven't had that disruptive moment in your life yet, I wanted to be the catalyst to it. I wanted to shake your soul. I wanted you to say, the problem in your life, the frustrations that you have, the sadness that you have inside, it's really coming from an internal place, right? No matter what the external factors are in your life, sadness is coming from you. Happiness is coming from you. If I hit my hand with a rock, the pain is registering in my brain, right? So ultimately, all sadness, all happiness is all within the self to control. So never give your power to somebody else. Never say, I will be happy when I'm with this person, or I'll be happy when they stop fighting with me. I'll be happy when I get that next job. I'll be happy when I get that money. I've had a frustrating day because that guy cut me off in traffic. Why let people determine the state of your emotions? If you want to be free and in control of your own life, why give away the sovereignty of your soul and yourself? And if you are of the more agnostic, atheistic group, which I do like to speak to, because if you're a spiritualist, if you're a true believer already, what are you doing here, right? I'm here to talk to the people who are like me, who are very rational, very in the technical, and just think a lot of this is crap, and don't know what to do with those weird feelings they get that don't make logical sense. And we want to believe we live in a logical, rational world, but we don't. Like, think about your day. What about your day is logical and rational? What about the people you meet is logical and rational? What about the chain of history and human events is logical and rational? And so there's the underlying mystic of the universe. And we don't like to talk about it in more serious academic communities, because we want that measurable and we want that data. But you know, if we're really truly scientists and we're really truly open-minded in this world, then we're open-minded in this world. And so you always have to keep your mind open to the possibility, even if you don't believe it, right? Was it Arthur C. Clarke said that a sufficient level of scientific advancement would look like magic to a primitive species. And so maybe the things that we chalk down now is magical, and now is a spiritual connection. Something that we have to use metaphor due to the limitations of our human ability to communicate and understand things. That there is an actual higher scientific explanation, perhaps at like a quantum level, that we just can't articulate yet because our species isn't there. However, if we use these tools of analogy and metaphor and understanding, we can get there anyways. Like it's like math class where you use the wrong formula but you came up with the right answer. Maybe that's what this is all about. I don't know. But I have to remind myself on the journey that the journey is the destination. That's why I have journey in the tagline. I always go back to journey, journey, journey. The journey to spiritual consciousness is the destination in and of itself. The journey never ends. So one thing I guess should have pointed out at the very beginning of all this is don't expect it to end, because it's not going to end. That's why I like to think of enlightenment with a lowercase e rather than an uppercase e. I believe, I feel that you can be more enlightened now than you were when you were 13. You're more enlightened at 40 than you were when you were 20. You know more about the world. You have more wisdom. You have more experience. You have more enlightenment as you go through the life than when you were younger. So no, maybe it's not the big capital E, I'm like Buddha enlightened, but you're operating at a higher metaphysical level for your own being than you were previously. And so the journey is just that. And so I guess this is more of a check-in sort of episode. I want to check in with you, and I want to check in with me. And let's talk about where we're at here. So what you saw at the end of that last video was a moment of bliss in myself. Now, when I talk about the spiritual journey, there's a lot of things that occur. And I talked about the precipitating event before. Something bad happens, and it might just be a weird event that happens in your mind that leaves you disconcerted. But it asks you to start delving into things. And you can become, in order for it to work, you have to become quite depressed. You have to become broken. You have to become a little mad. You have to face your fears, and you have to embrace those fears as part of you. You have to embrace the darkest shadow selves as part of you, in a way that when you're reincorporating that shadow self, like we talked about previously, it's not in the current form that it is now. Your shadow self is probably exhibiting itself in a very strange way, and maybe an abhorrent behavior, like an addiction, or like a sexual proclivity, or something, right? Something that you are not proud of and you would like to hide from the world. I think that you will find, when you're able, through the discomfort, to sit with the feeling, and it's not think about it, don't analyze it, don't just say, I'm a drug addicted fucking whatever, I'm a drug addicted person for whatever reason. Why? What is causing this hunger within me? When did it start? Why did I need this? And you got to go back. It's like, I had this weird sexual fetish. Why? What started it? And it might be like, I don't know, people who are into like boots and feet and stuff or whatever. Maybe it's because it reminds them of a powerful woman or someone in their life when they were young that they felt under the heel of. And so by reincorporating the self, they're not reincorporating some weird foot boot fetish per se, but they're looking at that thing that caused it, and they're saying, well, what I miss is the power that I had in the moment when the event occurred that caused that fetish to also arise within me. Like, fetishes and addictions are ultimately us trying to regain some sort of power through an action or a consumption. It's an energy consumption. And a lot of what we do is energy consumption. Pretty much all the universe operates on energy. Things are either in matter state or they're in energy state. Energy and matter cannot be created or destroyed. All it can do is transmute from one state to another. So things are constantly transferring from matter states to energy states. And I touched on this previously, but here in this example, what I'm trying to illustrate is there is a self energy, a power of the self that was fractured off into that shadow self, and it was lost, and it is now being re-embodied into those behaviors. And to become reincorporated into oneself, you have to sort of get rid of the like the behaviors itself became not an abomination, but like sort of a twisted version of the purity that you need to reincorporate. So it's like a part of you breaks out that's pure and nice and beautiful, and we almost torture ourselves with it by twisting it into something that we want to then consume to put that back within us. But there's something tainted about it. Tainted is probably the word, that when we do consume it in that new manner, it makes us feel worse, right? So if you want your power back and you're trying to get your power back, but the way you get it is by going out and having some chick with leather boots step on your naughty places, it's probably not the best way to get there, right? But you want to feel either the power or you want to feel the release, right? But embrace what it is about the thing, the experience, not the action. And so this is where I'm at right now, not with the boot thing, but like just I'm in my spiritual journey. And as you go through it, like I say, precipitating event, you start working through it, and it's kind of this up, down, up, down. Maybe I'm there. No, it's like, wait, but no, that's not it. Oh, and you're struggling and you're fighting. And you're like, why is that kink coming out? Why is that addiction coming out? And you're fighting it and you're fighting it and you're fighting it. And you're like, wait, this kind of reminds me of this. This kind of reminds me of this. Wait a minute. Now I'm starting to see that all these things are revolving around this one theme that I seem to have lost around this point in my life. And oh my God, it was the day that this happened. Yeah, I almost forgot about it. I blanked it out in my mind. I never thought it was a big deal, but ever since that day, X occurred, right? And then what happens when you sit with that realization and you get into that moment, it's what they call a eureka moment, you know, like when that scientist has finally found the answer. Eureka! I've figured it all out. Now, let me tell you something. When you have a moment in your life where you get the answer and you think everything is solved, it's the highest drug you will ever have in your life. Think of how crappy your life is. Think of all the sadness you've ever had, and in 1 second, with one thought, all of a sudden, all that goes away, and your brain shoots to the sky. You're blissful. And I don't know if you've never experienced true bliss. It's kind of different than normal happiness or joy. It's just this pure, everything is aligned, everything makes sense, the sun is brighter, the food tastes better, music tastes good, you're just in such a positive state, and you're like, I've made it, enlightenment is here, this is what it's all about, it's fantastic, I can't wait. And you know what that is? You're a dog in the universe, and the master has just looked at you and said, yep, you figured that one out, here's your cookie. And anyone who's ever had a dog knows they love getting that cookie. And they will eat that cookie and they'll spin around and they're really happy. But an hour or so later, if not sooner, they're going to want another cookie. The cookie happiness is going to wear off eventually. And that's what the universe does to us. It's like, you got it? All right, here's your reward. Enjoy it for a day. And boy, you go flying. You go flying. And that's kind of where I was at the other day, because it was really clicking in my head doing these videos and where I was going. And what I started to really feel was my purpose in doing these. Because again, in the beginning, I just said, do it. Just do it. It's been in the back of my mind well over a year ago. A voice in my head said, you have to be comfortable with the concept of becoming a content creator. And I was like, why? What does that mean? It's like, never mind. I was like, should I do photography? And I bought a really expensive camera. I started doing photography. And it's like, nah. It's good you have a camera, though, because that will help you out eventually, but that's not the thing. Okay, well, am I supposed to work on like this really cool D&D campaign and do like a Critical Role thing? Because I got this whole thing written, all these ideas, and it's like, you're closer, but not quite. Not quite. That's not quite how I want you to use your talents. But it is about creation. It is about videos. It is about putting yourself out there. It is about putting your ideas out there. But just keep going. And then it was out of my mind until like a few weeks ago or a week ago or whenever I started it, something in my head said, pick up a camera, go out in the garage and just record. And I did. And I'm here. And so you get thrust into these things. And so I've had many a spiritual journey through my life. Many, many, many times. But every time I'm learning a different lesson. I'm learning something else. And my problem is I'm too results oriented. Results oriented. I want to get to the end of the journey. The end of the journey is death. So if I get there, then what's the point? And if I get to the end of the journey without sharing what I've learned, then I've lived without purpose. Then the journey is without point, right? So I have to be comfortable sitting in the journey. A friend of mine who I used to work with, his name is Eric, and he's a fantastic artist. He's got a gallery out in Brooklyn. He does fantastic paintings. Ironically, he's colorblind, but he has this beautiful sense of color. And we worked for a company together because he also does user experience stuff. And when we were employed together, I met him, even though I worked remotely. I met him a few times and we'd hang out and went to the company, one of the big company parties we'd have, and he was there and I was talking to him. And like I say, I like to do art. I'm not a great artist. I'm okay. You know, I can draw a thing that looks like a person, you know, but it's not photorealistic. You know, my kid who's like in 7th grade can draw all around me, you know, and I'm so proud of her, but like she's got a gift that as much as I wanted it, I never had it in that way. And I'm artsy in different ways, but I'm a dabbler. I'm a toe dipper, like I said. So I'm kind of good at guitar. I'm kind of good at painting. I'm kind of good at working with wood. I'm kind of good at construction. I'm kind of good at this. I'm kind of good at that, but I'm not a master of anything. I'm a dabbler. I can't help it. But I was in one of my art kicks, and I was having a real hard time because every time I draw a head, it always comes out the same way. And I'm stubborn, so I don't really change my process or procedure when what I really need to do is do things differently. And what I really need to do is slow down and take more time. But I'm impatient. And when I was talking to Eric about my problems, I was like, can I just show you my art and have you critique it and stuff? Because this is the problem that I always have. I always feel like I'm making my people too narrow or too wide or too this or too that. And I can just never get it right. And it's really frustrating. But what he told me, and it's the same thing here, is your problem is you're rushing through it and you're trying to get to the end result. You want the painting to be done. And you'll never get a good painting if you just want the painting to be done. You have to enjoy the process. You've got to sit in it and enjoy every line stroke. You've got to be in it. And that's how you really know where your place is in this world. When you engage in something that fulfills you to the point where it's energizing, where you're not dragging your butt to do it, where it's just like, oh, the pure bliss of just being in this moment and to feel the brush strokes go across the canvas and to see how the color is interplaying as it drops on there. I don't even care how this turns out. And so like that's where I'm now at with these videos. Like I don't know where I'm going with them. I don't know how they're going to turn out. I don't know if anyone's ever going to view them or if this is going to be like a personal journal for me, or if it's going to be something that right before I die I go, hey kids, just so you know, I did all this on YouTube, so if you miss your dad, hit the button, you know, and that too is a legacy that is beautiful, because my kids will always see me like this and not old and decrepit and in bed and dying. But I just feel a certain calmness and peace and a fluidity in doing it where I don't have to try. And so I guess that's where I'm at. I just want to let you know that I'm in the process. And when you have that crash from that bliss moment, you're going to have days like me today where you're like really fuzzy, foggy, tired, worn out. And your body, especially your ego, is going to do this thing where it's going to snap back into old habits, because old habits are protective, they're known. And anything unknown causes fear, and anything known causes more comfort and security. So even things that are bad, if they're known, they cause security, which makes us feel better about ourselves, which is why people stay in bad relationships and bad jobs. Because a bad known is less scary than an unknown unknown. So a bad known, something you know, it's bad, but it's known, is less scary than an unknown, could be good, could be bad, unknown. I don't know what the thing is, right? So people will hold on to the familiar rather than just embrace what is. And so like after I had that video done, like my brain just went, what are you doing? This is dumb. No one's watching these videos. This is a waste of time. You gotta get out. You gotta get out and start getting a real job. You gotta get out and start getting money. But again, what would that... Yeah, okay, I'll be a Walmart greeter. Whatever, who cares? If I need money, if I need to make money, I'll do that. But if I need to change the world, which to me is a bigger goal and is more important, the best thing I can do is at least talk to the world. Because if I'm sitting here in my bedroom just thinking about this in my head, it doesn't do anyone any good. If I say one thing that one person can take to themselves and say, you know what, he's right, and I'm going to have a better day because of it, I'm going to try something different because of it, then my life has infinitely more purpose than if I don't do it. So even on days when I don't feel like it, and I'm tired and I'm dragging butt, and the clouds are gloomy, and it's like the world feels like my brain just depressed and foggy, I'm like, what are you doing? You're a logical guy and you're out here talking about spiritualism because what? You're mentally insane? And so I just get this, is it right? Is it everything? Is it nuts? Are you crazy? Is it right? Is it everything? Is it nuts? Are you crazy? And it eats away at you. And I'm telling you this because this is part of the spiritual journey. And so I'm deep inside, I'm like, Lord, I'm trying so hard to have faith here. Well, I'm more of a pagan, so it'd be more, oh, Father, I'm struggling, right? You know, give unto me a sign, just that I'm not crazy. That this is just, it's part of the process. And then I'm flipping around YouTube, and then what pops up but a documentary on Carl Jung's Red Book. Now, I had studied Carl Jung back when I was in college in 1993, 1994, 1995, around then. The Red Book wasn't even published until 2009. So I had never even heard of this thing, even though Carl Jung's like one of my heroes, if you can't tell. And I love the collective unconscious, and I want to talk about dream imagery and like archetypes and all this stuff because I think it's awesome. But I'd never heard of the Red Book. And so I'm watching this documentary, and what they're describing in the documentary, what Carl Jung went through essentially was, the Red Book is about this. It's about Carl Jung's spiritual journey. And so he was the psychotherapist. He was the heir to Freud. He was reason and psychology. He was the future of the scientific method of the mind. So he was a very serious man, you know, quite prestigious, quite regarded, you know. And so he starts doing this stuff, and he writes this book, and by the time he's at the end of the book, he closes the book, and he's like, I ain't never letting anybody read this. and he stuck it in his desk drawer and he locked it shut, and then he died. And then, like, what, 50, 60 years after his death, his family and his estate finally publishes it. And he didn't publish the book because he was afraid to. He didn't publish the book because he was scared that if anybody read it, they would think he is just crazy. He's just out of his mind mad. Oh, he was smart at one point, but boy, he's gone bonkers and he's lost it all. And what the Red Book describes is the spiritual journey. And so I'm listening to this for the first time with clean ears, swear to God. Never heard about it before. And what he was describing was almost step by step exactly the process that I've been under, to the point where I found myself jumping to my feet and going, yes, yes. You know, when you finally hear it, when you're finally seen, when you finally know that at least one other person in the course of history has experienced this thing in the same way that you have, that is so weird and so indescribable and yet so essential and so core to our human self. It's refreshing and it's liberating. So I would suggest for anyone who's listening to this kind of stuff with me right now, and I know I'm a crazy person, why don't you take a moment and just either YouTube Carl Jung on the Red Book, or the Red Ledger it might be called in some places, or get a copy of it and review the material, and then re-review all the stuff I said and see if it sounds familiar, and see if it resonates to anything that's happening in your own life. Because a lot of you, I think, have accidentally started spiritual journeys. You just didn't know what it was. You didn't know what the point of it was. And so rather than embrace it, you pushed it away. Rather than say, yeah, this is what I need to do. Hello, little birdie. Instead of this is what I need to do, it's like, I'm crazy. These are the pills I need to take. This is the therapy I need. I mean, maybe you're not crazy. Maybe it's just you're not in alignment with the world you live in. You know, it's Alice at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. Everyone else was crazy. She was the only one who was sane. If you're the only sane person in an insane world, everyone's going to think you're the crazy one. So treat yourself with some kindness and forgiveness. Give yourself some peace. Feel yourself be seen that you're not alone, and there's other people out here going through the same thing. Respect the fact that most of society is going to think you're a crazy person. They're going to put their fingers in their ears and they're going to say no, because they're stubborn, and it's easier to stay that way than accept the unknown that is change. So I'll leave you with that for today. Thank you again for spending a half hour with me. As always, it's greatly appreciated. Please like, comment, subscribe, share it around. I really am trying to build a community here of like-minded folks who are just trying to get to a better place in themselves to make this a more empathetic, better, and caring world. So as you go about your journey today, know that I love you, I thank you, and I hope to see you again here soon.